Welcome back to More Sports and Less Levine. I'm Dave Bacon. NBA draft is closing in New York tonight, and Josh Needelman is in New York for the NBA draft. Josh is the Virginia Cavaliers beat reporter for the Charlottesville Daily Progress. And Josh, you've seen DeAndre-Hunter. That's a guy that the Cavaliers are said to have a big interest in, potentially at the 5th pick in the draft that the Cavs have in the first round. What can you tell us about DeAndre-Hunter? And thanks for joining us. I'm a little remiss in that, but tell me a little bit about DeAndre-Hunter.
Yeah, that's a great privilege. DeAndre-Hunter is I think a really good fit for the modern NBA. He was the NABC National Defensive Player of the Year. He's the ACC Defensive Player of the Year. Virginia's pack line defense is famous for its efficiency, and DeAndre-Hunter was the anchor of that this year. Of course, he's also a really, really solid three-point shooter. As you all saw in the national championship game, he hit those 2 big threes, one at the end of regulation to send the game to overtime, and then one in overtime, but Virginia ahead. So we're sort of looking at the NBA as sort of like a really good 3-and-D guy, and also a really sort of quiet leader. He's not going to be a bombastic rah-rah guy, but he's going to sort of keep guys even keeled and level-headed. That's sort of what you're looking at.
Is he a guy that you think comes into the NBA and can become an immediate starter? Is he that type of kid, that type of player?
I think so. I think he's one of those players who, not necessarily a project, just sort of what you see is what you get. He's 21. He was at Virginia for 3 years. He prepared his first year and sort of developed steadily over those 2 years. So he's polished. He's ready to go. As we've seen with Tony Bennett, he knows how to sort of turn really good high school players into really good NBA pros. Joe Harris being one of those examples. He's polished. He's ready to go. Maybe not a sexy guy like Zion Williamson, but that's not his game.
Guy, what we have heard is he's a really good spot-up three-point shooter. Is that accurate? And have you seen his game grow from freshman to sophomore to the third year? You mentioned he's been there 3 years at Virginia. Have you seen him kind of develop as a player?
You're talking about DeAndre? Yeah, absolutely. He's freshman, his first year to play. His second year came off the bench. He was actually ACC Sixth Man of the Year. He was right there, but he wasn't sort of where he got to by his last year. The big key for him was developing into an elite defensive player. When he first got to Virginia, he even admitted to me this past year that he didn't really play defense before coming to Virginia. And actually, very soon after he got to campus, he had a meeting with Tony Bennett. And Tony was like, "Hey, I think you can be an elite defensive player. You commit yourself to this." And that was sort of what happened over the last 2 years. He sort of really committed himself. And, there are several sequences by the end of his tenure in college where he would just man up on, an opposing player for entire possession, sometimes force turnovers, sometimes block shots, sometimes get steals. Really locked down perimeter defender in college. And I think a lot of that could probably translate to the NBA.
You've gotten to know him as a beat reporter. You get to do that. What type of kid is he? How excited is he to be going into the NBA? And is the Cleveland Cavaliers a group that he's heard from and would like to be here from what you understand from being around him?
Yeah, he's a really mild-mannered guy. A lot of the pomp of NBA draft week isn't necessarily his thing. He knows he has to go through all of that stuff, but for him, he's really down to earth. He really loves his family. His brother's in town with him. His mom's in town with him. His 2 sisters are in town with him. He's spending a lot of quality time with them. It's sort of interesting. At the press conference yesterday, we saw a huge crowd around Zion Williamson's table. Maybe 100 reporters more than 30 minutes before Zion even spoke, and then we saw DeAndre-Hunter there. DeAndre's even answering questions about Zion himself. So yeah, really mild-mannered guy, just loves playing basketball. And I think there is some interest in Cleveland. We heard that report about how John Beeline's really interested in DeAndre, and I think he'd fit in really well there.
Another guy from Virginia could be on the Cavs' radar later in the first round in Ty-Jerome. Tell me a little bit about Ty-Jerome, what he does well, and some of the things that he needs to work on to get his game NBA ready, if you will.
Yeah, so the knock on Ty-Jerome has always been that he fails the eye test. He's not the best athlete, but he's a really, really fiery player. Really sort of the emotional leader for Virginia this past year. From New York City, sort of grew up playing in that environment. Really, really tough, really, really hard-nosed, not afraid to take a big shot, but doesn't take dumb shots. A really smart player. Looks to find his teammate first. If no one's open, he's a really, really efficient three-point shooter. Not afraid to take the basket, to take the ball to the basket. On defense, he worked really well in Tony's pack lines. So it'll be interesting to see if that sort of translates to the NBA, where obviously everyone's bigger and stronger and faster. So I guess if there's one thing he can work on, it's just sort of whatever team he ends up on, sort of making sure he's solid on that defensive scheme and, learning the ins and outs of it, which I'm sure he would. He's a very cerebral player.
Last thing I'll ask you, again, Josh Needelman is the Virginia Cavaliers beat reporter for the Charlottesville Daily Progress. Let me ask you, do you see DeAndre-Hunter, coming into the NBA and being a really good NBA to all-star caliber NBA player?
Absolutely. I mean, with these things, hindsight is always 20/20. But yeah, I mean, he's got a really, really good support system. He's obviously really talented. He obviously has, the NBA body, 6'7" with a really, really large wingspan. It's escaping me right now, but I believe it's over 7 feet. He's got what the NBA wants, right? He's a really good shooter, and this league is, moving, more and more toward long-range shooting, and obviously DeAndre can do that. He can play defense the best of them in the nation, so I don't see why not. He's probably not going to be your franchise player, but that's okay. Though, some talking heads have sort of compared him to Kawhi Leonard, and that's obviously, given what we just saw, not a bad comparison.
Josh Needelman, we appreciate the time very much. He is in New York covering the NBA draft, getting set to get underway here in just a little bit. The Virginia Cavaliers beat reporter from the Charlottesville Daily Progress. Josh, thanks so much for your time. Time for us to step aside, take a quick time out. More sports and less Levine. We'll be right back. Stay with us.